Welcome to the Savvy Dentist Podcast with Dr. Justin Krane, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Justin Krane.
Welcome back to the Savvy Dentist Podcast, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Justin Krane here at the control panels as always, and today I'm delighted to be talking to Justin Krane. Justin began his life as a financial advisor and has ended up working in the space of helping dentists, periodontists, endodontists and more just really get a handle on their cash flow and help them run a really successful business. Today's conversation has been really wide-ranging and we take a bit of a financial angle on it, not surprisingly given Justin's background, but we cover a heap of things about common mistakes people make with their finances, understanding cash flow, what about marketing, the ROI and all of that, and a heap of other things. The thing I really liked about talking to Justin is not only is he super knowledgeable and he gets numbers, he gets metrics, and he particularly understands dentistry, he's a really practical guy as well. So everything we speak about is stuff that's implementable, is actionable, and it works. So if you want to find out more about Justin, you can head across to cashflowgift.com and check out his stuff there as well. And you can also check out a website called jkrane.com. So jkrane.com. For those people who are new to our podcast, welcome. We'd love to see you at our sister Facebook group called the Savvy Dentist Facebook group. It's where we have training, tools, tips, techniques. It's a dentists only group. And if you're a dentist, we'd love you to come across there and join the conversation. It's free. So head on across to drjessegreen.com/Facebook and join us there. Now, just finally, as we like to talk about podcasting on this particular show, I want to introduce you to another podcast run by my good friend, Dr. Tyson Franklin, and he has a great podcast called It's No Secret with Dr. T. I'd really encourage you to check that out. It's another great source of information for dentists who listen to this show. But without any further ado, here is Justin Krane. Justin Krane, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come and hang with us on the Savvy Dentist Podcast. How are things with you today, my friend?
Amazing and awesome. Really psyched to be here. You're doing some great work.
Oh, thank you. And you too. So I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite a while because we work in the same space. We both work with dentists and endodontists and so on and so forth. And from the stuff I've read about you and from our conversation off air, it feels a little bit like we're singing from the same hymn sheet, which is an expression that I'm told I use a lot on this show. Some of the guests have reflected that back to me. But before we do get started into the nuts and bolts of what I wanted to go through with you today, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your background because it's an interesting story. It's not linear like most of us. There's obviously some twists and turns. So how did you find yourself in the position where you're working with dentists? How did that journey come about for you?
Well, I started out as a financial advisor and worked at a big Wall Street firm and did what I thought I was supposed to do. Like, you know, when you just kind of like, you're a pea in a pod and you think, oh, I should be doing this. And you just keep doing it. And then one day you wake up and you're like, you know what? This isn't really what I really want to be doing. And for me, that was my divorce. Like I got divorced about, I don't know, a little under 10 years ago. And I really, really began to get conscious with my life. And I looked at what is it that's important to me. And, you know, when you get divorced, you have to like hit the reset button financially. Like it's a game. It's like you're starting over. So I'm like, I am going to earn my way out of this and be smart with my money. And it's not just about how much I could save, but I got to be smart about managing it, about making it and all of that. And then I just rolled with that. I'm like, I got to put on my oxygen mask first. And that message really, really resonated with a lot of women and with my clients that were business owners. And then after like a year or two, I don't know what it was. I carved out this niche of working with dentists, endodontists, and periodontists because they have a lot of problems or challenges around dealing with money. And they have to take ownership of where they are financially. And there's so many moving parts in running a practice. And I did when I started over. A lot of times dentists and in the dental industry, it's like they know that they want to take things to the next level and they know that money is a big part of it. and they have a vision that they want to do something that's an extension of what their practice is, but they just don't know how to do it.
So, okay, so you've obviously spent a fair bit of time working with dentists like I do, and I'm interested to hear your experience of that because I'm a dentist and you're a financial advisor. We're kind of looking at the same thing, but from a different perspective, and I'm sure we'll end up at the same point. But when you see dentists and endodontists and periodontists and orthodontists and generally anyone who works in that space, when it comes to the money side of things, and you said that people want to take it to the next level, what is it from a financial perspective, initially at least, that you think is holding them back? What is it that you see commonly happening that you kind of wish you could tap someone on the shoulder and say, hey, don't do that. Whatever it is you're doing, just don't do that. What is it you think that they need to know?
I think it's about financial clarity.
So tell me more about that.
I think it's like, by the way, today's a very, very famous day here in the States. It's called National Get Your Head Out of the Sand Day.
I was in the United States last week and it was National Taco Day. So this is a much better day.
Every day is something. By the way, that is my day. I say it all the time, right? Because if you're running a practice, you have to get your head out of the sand with the numbers. And you don't have to do it all on your own. You can come out with a team. I mean, you can have a financial advisor, a bookkeeper, a CPA. So the commonality is that the dentists kind of like don't want to look under the hood of what's going on with the numbers of their business. They might focus on one metric like collections and think, oh my God, that's it. But like what I really think that the dentists need to be focusing on, aside from financial clarity, if we want to drill down a little bit more, cash.
Yes. Hallelujah, brother. So cash flow.
Cash, man. Cash. Like what's in the bank? How do we get it? Can I take that out? Can I put it away? Do I have to invest in something? All sorts of questions around cash. But tracking cash and being aware of how much you have and what's coming in and what's going out is huge. It's not a number like profitability. Everyone says, oh, profits, but cash is so important.
I think that's a really interesting point. And for listeners who have just tuned in, we're talking about finances and getting your head out of the sand. And the point Justin's made, I think, is really important. And just to express it in a way that is fairly explicit, and that is that profit does not equal cash, right? They're not the same thing. And I find that people confuse the two. Do you find that people confuse profit and cash?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, profit is an accounting financial mumbo jumbo term. I mean, yeah, it's important and the business needs to make money, but cash is really what it's all about. Buying another practice that you want to buy, making an investment in hiring someone. I mean, all of those things are involving money that may not result in money coming back to you right away, where you may need to tie it up or make an investment. And that's where cash flow comes in.
So again, it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because cash is kind of like oxygen. It just keeps the business alive, and businesses don't go out of business because they didn't make profit. They go out of business because the cash flow stopped, and therefore the oxygen to the muscles, to the brain, to the heart of the business just dies. So when it comes to managing cash flow, then if we understand that that's an important thing, apart from getting their head out of the sand and understanding that there's a team that can support them in that, whether it's a CPA, bookkeeper, financial advisor, and so on, what else is really critical for dentists to understand about managing cash? Where is the time spent best when it comes to managing cash flow?
So I love that question. And it's such a good one, especially coming from someone like you with your amazing accent, because it just elevates how smart you are by just asking that question. I hope everyone listening who's from down under or the UK, I know, down under is where it's at. So I think, number one, the first driver of cash is profitability. So it is how much money you've collected and then what your expenses are and blah, blah, blah. So that's one thing. I mean, we all know that. But the next driver of cash is money coming out of the business. So if you're running your shop, you're either taking money out of the business to live on or to set aside for taxes, or the business isn't profitable enough and you're having to put money into the business. So the second thing in managing cash is taking it out for your personal financial life. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you need to be aware of how much you can take out, because a lot of times people are like, where did all of the money go?
Yeah. And then you go, my accountant tells me I've got a giant tax bill to pay, but I don't feel like I've earned that much.
Yeah. And then you're like scrambling to try to come up with the money. So the money going out personally is really, really important. And I also think that if you can automate it, it's so much better, because as the dental practice mature, you kind of know what your hygiene is going to do. You have a general idea on what you're going to do in your own production each month. You can begin to automate a certain amount of money that goes out of the bank into a tax account. That would be most likely in the business. You just keep like a business savings or business checking account. And then when you have to pay the taxes, you'd make a distribution and pay it and so on and so forth. And then you need to automate something that's going to go over to your personal account to live. Now, the salary that you pay yourself as a dentist, if you're an S Corp, or I don't know how it is in Australia, but you just need to make sure you have enough money going out and you're not taking too much from the business. And then you're like, oh my God, I don't have enough to make payroll.
Yeah. And it's funny, isn't it? I heard someone say recently that being the business owner is a bit like being the parent. And, the business is the child and everything in it was the children. And good parents eat last. And if you eat too much, you starve your child, being the business and all that happens within it. And you're right. I see quite regularly people suddenly have an extravagant lifestyle, but they leave the business short on cash. And all of a sudden, the golden goose is starting to starve and those golden eggs stop coming. So what do you think about managing receivables and payables, getting those accounts receivables down, payables out? Is that something you talk about in terms of managing cash flow as well?
Well, you want to get your receivables, you want to get as much as you can. And I found that most dentists have good collection rates. They really do. And their payables, it's inventory, supplies, and all of that kind of stuff. Most of that is good, and most dentists can manage that. Where they get tripped up is when they make strategic investments in their business. The money goes out, I guess you could call that, just this money going out, right? And the money that they want to come back in for whether it's hiring an associate, getting more space, getting another operatory chair, whatever it is, it doesn't come in as quickly as they thought. So now you've got this money going out. And then the money coming in isn't coming in quick enough. And then you have your normal overhead. That, I think, is where the dentists get tripped up. The payables and receivables, I think they're okay at that. But this strategic investment thing is a nightmare. And that's where I can really trip people up.
Yeah, it's a really, really good point. And I'm not sure if it translates the same here as in the US. So again, tell me if it does or doesn't. But I was talking to a young guy from New Zealand, actually, just what we say across the ditch, which is...
just down the road.
Just down the road, yeah.
Down the pond.
Just across the road a bit. And it was interesting because he's not a client of mine, but this young fellow was spending up big on buying a lot of implants because he was getting a discounted deal to buy them in bulk, and he bought a lot. And of course, the problem, which is exactly as you've identified, is that he invested a lot of cash up front, paid out that cash flow. He then took at least a year to use that inventory and more. And then on top of that, he gave the patients terms, meaning that he didn't even collect that money at the time that he did the treatment. So the cycle of cash there was just terrible. And so it was no wonder, as you've highlighted, that there was some cash flow issues. So again, really important. Justin, just to move on from managing cash, because we understand that's an important part of running a business, given other elements of the business, where else do you see the people you work with coming unstuck? We understand we've got to get our head out of the sand, but assuming we've done that, we're starting to manage cash better. What other areas do you see trip dentists up, or endodontists or so on? And I'll just use the collective noun of dentists. What do you see?
Okay, so my answer, I'm going to give you my answer, and then I want to ask you about if this is something that you coach on. It's going to sound crazy, but it's marketing. Is that something that you focus on?
It is a huge part of what we focus on, yeah.
So I just come at it from the financial standpoint and not like the branding or your messaging or the copy or the none of that. But the thing is the internet and social media has made dentists more aware that they need to market a different way than just taking out referring doctors to lunch. And it opens up this other awareness that they're like, you know what I really need, and this is what they struggle with, is a holistic marketing plan. And they don't come at it from an investment mindset, and they view it a little bit more as an expense. Oh, I got to hire this person to do my marketing. And they're not viewing it as a strategic investment, because they view it, it's more of a clinical thing. Like when you're a dentist, you're drilling teeth and you're doing root canals and you're doing implants, but marketing is huge. And there needs to be an allocation of money to invest in marketing. And then a lot of times what I see happening, Jesse, is that I'm sure you see this, is they'll try something, it won't work, and they're like, forget it, I'm not doing anything. And they just give up.
Yeah. And on top of that, the other thing, and again, I'm interested if this translates for you as well, is there's not a critical examination of the return on that investment as well. And so they'll say, look, I'm spending, I don't know, let's just, for round numbers, let's say we're spending $2,000 or $3,000 a month. I'm getting X number of new patients, and that generates a certain amount of revenue. And they seem to do a straight ROI calculation based on revenue generated without then drilling down through the cost of goods sold or other things like that again to work out the actual ROI, right? And so it seems like the ROI calculation goes a little bit amiss as well.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Like if you just, let's just say that you do an implant for 10 grand and it costs you $3 to buy the stuff. So you're making $7. That's the number in your head that you need to think of. All right, $7,000 for an implant. And then what am I going to invest and how much do I need to make on that? I like a 3-to-1 ROI. I like that as a gauge for the gross profit, because I think that's enough of a return to make people say, you know what, it's not worth it. And then also enough of a return to make people say, you know what, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so marketing is another area that trips people up in terms of not allocating enough resource to it, not measuring the ROI on it. Is there anything else around marketing particularly, and I've got a viewpoint on this as well, but is there anything else around marketing that you see that people, frankly, stuff it up?
Yeah, like I am so simple when it comes to this. Like on the P&L, there needs to be a line item that says marketing.
Yeah.
I look at so many dentist P&L, there's nothing there. So when I see that there's no line item for marketing, I'm like, okay, well, patients don't renew, they don't come back, a referring doctor dies, blah, 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 whatever it is. If I don't see a line item for marketing, it's like that's a big red light that there needs to be one.
Yeah. It's a really good point, isn't it? Because if people aren't investing in marketing, generally speaking, they're not growing. And that's a simplification. I acknowledge that there'll be circumstances where that statement I just made does not hold true. But generally speaking, it seems to hold water. I was looking at a Facebook group the other day, and there was a guy in there, a marketing expert, in inverted commas, and not surprisingly, he runs an SEO company. And in that particular group, he was saying, don't worry about pre-appointing your existing patients, because then there's no room for your new patients, which I have to tell you, I completely disagree with, because that whole retention strategy, I think, is really important part of marketing. In fact, I think it's invaluable. And the question that I ask my clients all the time is, how big would your practice be if you had kept every single patient that ever walked through the door? And it usually raises an eyebrow.
Yeah, for sure. So how are you dealing with your clients who resist the marketing and don't really want to do it in the manner that you think they should?
Well, it's like everything. Obviously, people are free to make their own choices, and I'm there to guide people, not to dictate to them. It's like with patients, you present the information and people then need to make a decision that's most appropriate and is best for them. But certainly speaking, with the guys that I work with personally, they're fairly open-minded when it comes to marketing. They're quite astute business people, so they kind of get it. And that tends to filter out people who don't come to us, to be honest with you. It's one of the filters that we have in terms of the people that we work with. So we work with very commercially minded dentists. Is that kind of where you operate as well?
I work with all sorts. I think the ones that see that they need to do something are at a point in their business where they know they need to do something more. They might be losing some of the referral sources and know that they need to do something different, but they just don't know what it is. I mean, I'm they work with marketing people. I'm just saying, like, guys, you have to do something, really invest. And I want to bring up another point because I didn't answer this yet, but you asked about it. You know, where are they struggling and what are the things that dentists really need to get right with? People and their staff. And again, I am not I'm just bringing up marketing, and there needs to be a financial understanding of the ROI on it and what they're doing. But the staff compensation and the dealing with staff and all of that is probably the biggest headache that dentists have, and how they should pay them and what should the overtime be and who's really a key person at the firm and who they really need, who's a good reflection and all of that kind of stuff. And I think that, and even the hygienists too. I mean, I think that those numbers need to be evaluated and measured. And I am so old school with this. I'm like, we're going to get out a piece of paper or Excel or a Google Doc. We're going to like type everyone's name down and what their salary is. And we're going to evaluate it. And we're going to see who do we like, who's good, who's not. And this is something that's always on the dentist's minds.
Isn't it funny? Because have your clients or dentists ever said anything to you along the lines of, you know, running the business would be so hard, so easy, I should say. It would be so much easier if I just didn't have to deal with the staffing issues.
100%.
Yeah. So, okay. So given we go through the analysis of who's good, who's not, what then? You might look at your list of team and go, okay, well, you know, I've got Bob over here who's clearly an A player. And then I've got Peter over there who's a B player and Bill who's a C player. Then over in the corner, I've kind of got this dude, John, who is a D player. How do you manage to, or what's your thinking around managing those different people on the team?
I think this is just what I see, is that the energy in dealing with John is like a life suck. Like it sucks the energy out of them and they resist dealing with John, and they don't even want to come back from lunch because they know John's going to be there if they have no more patients for the day. So they have to make an investment back into their energy to step up and deal with John, which can be lots of different things. Let John go. Then they got to, talk with their attorneys and HR and all of that stuff. Keep John and invest in him, or do nothing and have the same result. So I think, and it's a big downer for the dentist when they have someone they don't like. It's a big downer. And at the end of the day, they usually will let that person go, or that person will quit, or that person will end up suing the dentist.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is you kind of get what you tolerate. Either deal with it in terms of move John on, deal with it in terms of upscaling John, or just deal with what you've got, but something needs to change. And if you're not prepared to change it, then it's going to suck the life out of you.
Yeah. And most of the time what ends up happening is I'm going to just make up a number. They were paying John $20 an hour, but Sally, who's really qualified and put in her resume 6 months ago, is $27 an hour. And that is more expenses. Maybe they have to have a bigger participation in the 401k plan, and it's going to cost more. But really, if they just had a vision and understood what the effect of hiring Sally would do on their cash, that it may not be such a bad thing to hire Sally. Because when they hire Sally, all they need to do is one more implant a month, or one more root canal every 2 weeks, or 4 fillings every whatever it is. So that's a big one. The staff is such a big thing. And I feel bad for the dentists that struggle with it. It's hard. It's taxing, and it's bad.
Yeah. And ultimately, when you think about it, your team are your source of leverage, right? So if you want to create time in your business and you want to create true business rather than being that operator who pedals harder and harder and harder, if you want to create that kind of practice, then you need to build a team. You need to upskill as an owner in terms of being able to deal with the D players and to identify the Sallys who are the A players and bring them in and to understand, as you mentioned earlier, the investment versus the expense. And so rather than seeing salary as an expense, we see salary as an investment in terms of culture, productivity, so on and so forth, right? Is that basically what you're saying?
100%. Yeah. I mean, people, it's a big thing. Big thing.
Yeah. And so, okay, so if I'm a dentist working with you and I go, Justin, I know that I've got to get better at dealing with people. I know that this is a deficiency I have within my skill set. What would be your advice to someone who said that to you? How would you go about learning and developing that particular part of your business toolkit?
Well, I think it depends on and what route they want to go. One is they're going to invest time and energy into finding the right people and being able to work with them. The dentist may need to take a class on communications. They may need to understand more about systems with the front office. So the dentist either has to decide that he or she is going to do that, or what else they do, which is equally okay, is they'll bring someone else in. They'll bring in a third party who's like an HR workplace communications consultant, hire them and try to get them to make the team better.
So, ladies and gents, if you've just tuned in, we are having a conversation with Justin Krane, and you can find him at cashflowgift.com. And we've been talking about things that trip up dentists in terms of running their business. We've spoken about getting the head out of the sand and understanding cash flow. We've spoken a bit about marketing and understanding that it's an investment and measuring that investment. And we've also spoken about team and investing in team rather than seeing the wages as an expense, seeing the ability to hire A players as an investment in your practice and your future. So assuming we get all this right now, Justin, we've got our cash flow under control, we've got our team working harmoniously and productively, we've got marketing going well that focuses on the recruitment of new patients and retention of existing patients. What sort of things have you observed in terms of an uptick in the practice? So for people listening to this show, they go, okay, Justin, I get that. I'm going to do it. I'm all over it. What have you seen as a result of getting that right?
Financial peace of mind, more money in the bank results. I really think it's financial peace of mind. And then as the dentists get older, like as they get into their 40s and 50s.
Steady on the older part, mate.
Okay.
I'm in my 40s now, mate. I'm still.
So am I. I'm going to be 47 in like 10 minutes. This is the other thing. Like, it is, they begin to feel like, you know what? I'm done with drilling and filling Monday through Friday. I'm done. Like, get me out. I am done. But I got 2 kids in college, and how am I going to get them through? And like, what's the end game with all of this? So where their mind goes, and if you're listening and you're in the middle-aged category and you're like, how am I going to get out of this? Everything that we're talking about, guys, it's about valuation of your practice. If you can refine all of these things and have these higher metrics, whoever you're going to sell to, first of all, you'll have something that you can sell. And then whoever you sell to is going to pay a higher multiple for your cash flow. And no wonder why a lot of dentists are selling to these DSOs. I don't know how big it is down by you, but like, I mean, they're like aggregators, and they can do it and they can streamline expenses and blah, blah, blah. But like, if you guys can nail this stuff, you can sell for a higher price, or you can sell for the same price and work 2 days less a week. So that's a biggie. It's super duper important. And I think that you need to view this as a journey. Like, you're not going to nail this overnight, but if you do become intentional with what we're talking about, your practice could be valued a lot more, not like a few bucks, like a ton more.
I really like the word you used there, and that was intentional.
Yes.
Because I think that's an important one. I don't want to gloss over that without just touching on that, because sometimes when we speak, we use words that are really powerful, and that isn't a powerful word. So I want to come back to the intentionality piece. So when you're working with people, how do you get them to become intentional about that? How do you bring focus to those areas?
I just drip on them, and I keep dripping and dripping and dripping. And really what we're talking about is something called prosperity thinking. It's believing that you can intentionally create and manifest the financial life that you want for yourself. You have to create it on your own. You have to do. Poverty thinking is lack, is not enough business, or that's too much money, or it's not going to work out, or I hate my life. Prosperity thinking is about being intentional and actually being aware of what you're doing and taking ownership that only you are the one that can get yourself out of it. That's ultimately how I got out of my whole divorce mess, is not being a victim and not having the poverty thinking, is ultimately coming to terms with, look, I have to be a prosperity thinker. I want to be, and I want to be intentional with my actions.
Yeah, I think that's actually really incredibly powerful. So for ladies and gents, if you've been listening to that last little section of Justin's there, I'd really encourage you to go back for the last 30, 40 seconds and listen to that over and over again, because I really agree that our mindset and the way we see things is critical in the outcome that we produce. And so many people that I speak to, not so much in the client group that we work with, but lots of people I see in the different forums and so on, are a little bit negative, a little bit scarcity minded. And I actually think that when there's change in the marketplace, which we're experiencing a lot here, I'm sure it's the same in your place, Justin, as well, that wherever there's change, there's opportunity. And I think that opportunities in dentistry at the moment are enormous, provided that you have that prosperity thinking. And I think you've nailed that really well. You were talking about exitability a moment ago, and I also just want to cycle back to that, because I think that's a really key thing. And one of my philosophies, Justin, is to build a practice with a view of exiting one day, and hopefully that exit is by choice, as compared to some life event that forces it upon us. So I'm curious to talk a bit about earnings and multiples, because the valuation of a business is typically earnings by multiple, and we've spoken a bit about earnings and improving cash flow. What are the key things that you see that influence the multiple side of the equation? What are the things that people need to work on there? Is it around risk management? Is it around making sure they're not susceptible to vagaries of the marketplace? What are the things that you see are important in that regard?
Number one, well, there's so many I want to blur out. Profitability is one. Like, whoever is buying the business is going to look at the profits. But the other thing is so they're buying cash flows. That's one thing. Like, if I'm going to buy something, I want to know how much am I going to get each year or each month from what I'm buying. The other thing is not only am I buying the patients that the dentists are seeing, right? You're also buying the assets of the practice. So what are those assets of the practice? Obviously, one of them is cash. Like, can the business generate cash above and beyond the profits? Which means, is there enough money in the business to pay the business owner, let the dentist take the money out to live on, and there's still extra money left over? So you're buying that cash. The more cash that gets left in there and is available to a buyer, the higher the valuation. So that's number one on the asset part. Number two is just the inventory, like how many operatory chairs do you have and some supplies and whatnot, and that's that. And then there's all these other little metrics like profitability on hygiene, average length of patient stays, how long the staff has been there, all of those kind of like little things. And if the business is diversified, and if the dentist can show that, look, we're bringing in money, we're doing sales in 4 areas. Maybe we're doing implants, maybe we're doing fillings, maybe we have hygiene. First, you're buying the profits, then you're buying the assets. And if the business can create assets, then that thing is worth a lot more.
And so I think that's a really powerful point as well, because assets and understanding the balance sheet of a business is really important. And again, coming back to the financial conversation we started with, my experience as well is, as soon as I say the word, people are really used to looking at their P&L, right? But as soon as I say balance sheet or statement of cash flow, people, their eyes tend to roll back in their head and they start foaming at the mouth, and no one wants to look at the other two financial statements. But I think what you've touched on there is really important, and that is, what are you buying? The cash, the inventory and the assets, and then of course those other little metrics is really key. What are the things that you think people, if I was selling my business or thinking about getting ready to sell my business, and clearly if I'm a purchaser, I'm analyzing the business from what could disrupt the future stream of earnings here, what are the things that could knock this off its perch? If I'm the owner preparing my business for sale, what specific things do you think I should be thinking about to be exitable in a really good way?
There's one key metric that I forgot. I want to answer your question. It's debt. If the business has debt, then the business is not going to be worth as much, especially whether it's credit card debt or high rate bank loan debt. That's going to put it's just going to put a drag on it. So And we could talk about managing debt till the cows go home. That's a really, like, a few of the people I work with, they have either bought into a practice and are now having to pay out the person that they bought it from. And whatever that rate is, like the higher the rate, the more it hurts the cash. We've looked at being more aggressive in that debt pay down, which then makes the business more valuable and frees up way more cash flow. So I just want to make sure I hit debt because it's so important.
Yes,
now to answer your question about what do you need to be thinking about, consistency of those things. You can't have one huge year and then one bad year, a ton of cash that gets built up and then no cash that gets built up. The buyer is going to want to see consistency of sales, profits, cash being built up, revenues, and maybe even people, how long the staff has been there, and maybe even the demographics of the patients.
Again, I think that point around consistency is so key, isn't it? Because it comes back to the intentionality part earlier, that if you do the things intentionally as you move through, you're going to get the consistency. And when you've got the consistency, you're going to add value to your business. Just to bring that circle around, yeah. So Warren Buffett's got that wonderful metric, which he calls stability of earnings growth, and it speaks exactly to your point. I'm not sure if you're a fan of Warren Buffett or read.
Love him.
Yeah.
I had lunch with him today.
Really?
No, I'm kidding.
I was just going to say, I thought you might have been to a Berkshire Hathaway meeting or something.
No.
Man.
But it sounded good.
Yeah, it did sound good. You almost had me there. But the point being is that what you spoke about is that cycle of up and down. If we can make things more stable, more steady, consistently going in the right direction, then that clearly adds value to your practice. So that's really wonderful. I wanted to ask you, as we kind of begin to conclude, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the most interesting things you've seen in dental practice, because every practice is different. Every practice has got its story. And what I find and observe, and I'm sure you do too, is you sometimes see some out-of-the-box things. You go, yeah, never in a million years would I have expected to see that. So I'm curious to understand if you've had any out-of-the-box situations, either good or bad, where things have just gone spectacularly well, or indeed someone's just, without wanting to put people's name out there, where people have just made a bit of a mess of things. And what could other people learn from that?
The only big thing that's like any interesting at all is drama with the staff. Like what some of these staff members do and what my clients tell me that their staff does is insane. Like I'm not going to go into, but like marital stuff, family stuff, showing up, with maybe a little too many drinks after a happy hour, like just like stuff that like, I don't know, that you really wouldn't think people would do, but they do it and they think they can get away with it. Like, hello, really? But so that's pretty much like, and a lot of dentists listening, I bet you guys are like, oh yeah, we have our stories, just that.
Everyone's got their stories, haven't they? Which is fantastic. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? Because they say that trial and error is the most expensive way to learn something. And so a smart person will make mistakes and figure it out, but a wise person will hopefully examine the mistakes of others and avoid them. Of course, they'll make their own. Justin, you've been incredibly generous with your time today, and I really sincerely appreciate that. As we begin to wrap things up, I've got two last questions I want to ask you. The first thing is, for people listening to this particular show, if you were to give them, if we had a billboard on the highway that had the gospel according to Justin, it had 2 or 3 or 4 bullet points on there, what would be your key things that you'd want people to take away?
So you who are listening, number 1, are awesome. You're awesome. You're an amazing dentist. You're doing great. With that said, it is okay to work with a team of people that can help you. You don't have to do everything yourself. A lot of the things that we discussed today, you're probably like, you know what? Yep, I got that problem, or yeah, I got to work on that, whatever. View everything that's going through your mind as making progress on it. View it as if you can just chip away at it, you'll make progress. Like, I'm a financial advisor. I manage money. One of the biggest tenets of managing money that Buffett would, I think he maybe even started this but is compounding of interest. It's investing, having your money make something, and so on and so forth every year where it builds on itself. Just imagine if you took action in one thing and made progress with that, and then parlayed that into the next thing. So you have to take some action to get a different result. You don't have to do it all at once. Just come from a place of, you know what? I got this. I'm awesome. I'm amazing. But I need a team of people to help me. And I'm just going to chip away at it. And those are really like, I think it's more mindset. Once you believe that you can pull it off, then it's just a question about, okay, what do I have to do? What are the steps?
I really love the idea of taking that compounding and adding it to your practice. I really like that, doing one little thing every single day just to advance the practice. I think that's really, really wise. So my next question for you is a question I like to ask people because I just find it fascinating. And that is, if you were to have a barbecue or a dinner party or someone else, some other kind of social gathering like that, who would be the 5 or 6 people that you'd love to have around a dinner table to enjoy the conversation? They can be live or dead, doesn't matter.
Oh boy, there's so many. Well, I'll say one, my father, he passed away recently. So if I could have him back, I'd have him back for a barbecue.
Of course.
I'd probably start with Roger Federer. Like I'm a big tennis player. Like I love him. I'd have Federer. I'd also have probably Magic Johnson. Like I'm a big sports guy. Like I love competing, right? I have Magic. He was a competitor and he's a great businessman. And he's just like he's just super, super smart. And then from there, I'd probably have like Mark Cuban. I love him.
Okay.
I don't watch Shark Tank religiously, but I can really relate to how he thinks and how he takes risk and what he does. From that, I think like I would love to meet like my great grandparents, like something like that. How about you? What are your 5?
Well, interestingly enough, tennis is a thing that I really enjoy. So when I was a young kid, I played a lot, and I was a huge fan of Bjorn Borg.
Oh, yeah.
And when I was traveling to the US recently, I was watching a doco. It was called Borg versus McEnroe, and I used to.
I saw that.
Yeah, and
it's amazing. Yeah,
fantastic show. Yeah. And I used to love watching those two guys go at it. And for all John McEnroe's tantrums, I used to think he was an extraordinarily talented player. But it was interesting. What struck me about Bjorn Borg was the lack of unforced errors.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I've kind of been thinking about that on the way back and forth on the plane. And sometimes I've been going, maybe success in business or in any field is minimizing unforced errors. So I wanted to talk to him about consistency. So he'd be one person that I'd like to talk to. We play a lot of cricket over here. So there's a guy called Steve Waugh, who for me is possibly one of the toughest guys going around. And again, you've got someone bowling a cricket ball, which is really, I don't know if you've seen a cricket ball.
I have. Don't mess with those things.
They're hard. You get hit by that and it hurts. And he's had people bowling that at over 100 kilometers an hour at him, 150 Ks. What's about 100 miles nearly. And he's getting hit and battered, and he just takes it. He's got this incredible ability to take a beating. And I quite admire his toughness around that. So, and still come out on top. So I think for me, there's a lot of people like you that I'd have, but those two guys from the sports world would be up there for me. Justin, you've been a really wonderful guest, and actually you really are a fantastic podcast guest. I feel like I could talk to you for days on end.
Thank you.
I'm really grateful. Next time we get you on our show, I'll have to tune into the sports a bit more, because I'm sure there's a lot of things we could talk about there. The comeback of Tiger Woods recently to win a major and all those sorts of things. So it's fantastic. So, mate, thank you from all of us here at Savvy Dentist. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and hang with us. So cheers, mate.
Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green. For more free tools and resources, join the free Facebook group. Visit drjessegreen.com/Facebook. And for more episodes, visit drjessegreen.com/savvydentist.